How's it going, everybody? Armor Studio NYC back with the second part of our build for our Stug 3 Ausf Sd.Kfz.142. So in this video, we're going to grab our base, we're going to grab our model, we're going to grab our primer. As always, we use our Mr. Furnishing Servicer 1500 in black. I like black because it creates the artificial shadows of places we're not able to get to. We're also going to grab some respirator. Very important. Is toxic. And we're going to show off the interior of the model, which I didn't get to the last video, but since this is a painting video, I figured I would show off the completed painted interior, which is pretty much just white chipped with the German gray in our little sponge technique that I went over, and that was for the pretty much the entire interior as well. But we're gonna grab our Iwata HPCS and we're just going to lay down a nice base coat of primer. Now I like to put this primer on fairly wet because it doesn't allow for us to have that orange peel pattern, and it also doesn't have a lot of space to, well, show off that sediment that it has, being as it is a surface primer. So the paint is supposed to latch onto here, but we want it in this nice satin finish where it's nice and smooth, and any gluey fingerprints or any greasy handprints would be covered in this primer, and we have pretty much a nice blank canvas to work on. This is going to be a Stug in Poland, so we're going to use our German gray, which I personally really love this color. It's very specific. And instead of laying down an entire base coat of paint, we're going to kind of marble pattern the entire tank. I like this way of painting a little bit more. I did experiment it on this tank, but I come to kind of like the way that this looked a little bit more. You don't have to really pre-shade, you don't have to post-shade either. You just lay down a nice marble pattern and it kind of gives you that feeling of some nice, like, distressed paint. With this, we're going to be using our Harder Stug CR Plus because it is a little bit more of a finer needle and we get a little bit more control with our paint spray. I think I'm going to carry on painting my models in this fashion for the future, this marble pattern. You get to see it really well on this this side panel here, and mind you, this is no pre-shading and no post-shading will be done, so it's just the base layer of paint. Not only does this cut down time, but it cuts down you know, having to mix paints and not be happy with the colors, and it just, at the end of the day, it cuts down on time, and that's really important when, you know, you're trying to model and let's say you're a little bit crunched for time because of life and work and other things of that nature. And we're just going to continue and do this to the entire model. Now this is going to be a dual color scheme, and some of you may already know in what way this may be a dual color scheme, but I'm gonna try to keep it a surprise for as long as I can. I've only really done single camo tanks so far on the channel. I do have tritone and dual tone camos for tanks that I've built previously. However, none of these kits really call for that, so I wanted to do a little bit something different, and I wanted to go about it in a different way as well. So let's see what we have going on here. And this is pretty much just our finished, well, not finished because we still are going to paint those side fenders, but this is pretty much an overview of what you're going to get as soon as it's painted. You get some nice, really distressed paint there, and it was totally under control, and I mean, I think the final product speaks for itself. You get some wear and tear on the paint, and we didn't have to do this crazy amount of work to do so. We just put our paint in the brush, and then used our marble pattern to create this texture. So we're gonna go with the top group there with the white skull, but how can we make this interesting? In order to do what we're gonna do, we're gonna need some assistance by some other products. So this is Humbrol Mask Skull. It is a liquid mask that you typically use to cover canopies for like planes. It's very easy to control. Usually you would just apply it with like a paintbrush, but here we're gonna be doing something a little bit different. So we're gonna grab our sponge and we're gonna dip it in this liquid mask solution, and we're just going to dab this mask all over this model. This may be a hint as to what we're getting at with our tank here, but this solution is very, very cool. You lay it down, it dries, you paint over it, and then you just peel it off as if you were peeling off a paint mask or a tape mask. So we're just going to cover the model in this, and we're going to color it in a certain color, which is going to make it look very nice, which is also something that I haven't done on this channel. I did do to a model previously before this channel. However, I'm super, super excited, and I really can't wait for you guys to see the final product of this video. It's going to be really, really great. So if you guys guessed correctly, we're going to be doing a snow camo. You guys could probably tell by the thumbnail as well, now that I think about it. But yes, we're going to use just Tamiya basic white, and we're going to cover over some of these parts that we did with the mask skull. Now, I wanted to go piece by piece here, or section by section, because I didn't want to kind of cover the whole model without understanding how it worked, but this is what we're going to do. So we're going to cover it in a cloudy white. We don't want to bury the model under white paint, and we're going to take a fairly stiff bristle brush, and we're just going to pretty much peel away and wipe away all of this mask skull. At one point I transitioned to tweezers because it is a little bit easier, but as you can tell, you get some really, really awesome chipped paint here. Now, historically in World War II, if a tank was to be outfitted for winter or have a winter camo, it didn't come that way from the factory. It was field applied, and what they would do is they would just take basic white paint and they would apply it very crudely onto their tank. Since it was applied very crudely through vibrations and driving and other weather effects and stuff like that, it was very easily chipped. So that's why this mask skull is pretty great. And it's also why we dabbed it on there, because we get the same effect as our chipped paint here. Only thing, it comes in the form of now a mask. So now you get some really, really nice chipped paint. And what's really great about this step, as opposed to introducing some type of liquid or water, is that we don't cloud up the surface with white paint. I remember using the hairspray method, and with the hairspray method you have to take water and cover the model, and then it starts to peel or chip. But not only is that really inconsistent in terms of results, but the acrylic paint does get diluted a little bit with water, even if dry, and you end up clouding up the surface. So with this, we're just able to achieve the chips, and beautifully underneath, we still get a lot of that clouded detail from our original base coat. So we get a nice marble pattern where the paint still looks distressed, but we achieved what we wanted to achieve with the winter camo. So now we're going to continue with the rest of the tank. That first section there, I kind of just covered it in places where decals would be. I wanted to be very precise right with the decals, because, you know, typically the crews would leave the decal portion or the unit marking portion unpainted completely, so you could still identify what unit, what battalion the tank was from. So I wanted to take a little bit more care with that and make sure the measurements were correct. But in terms of every other part of this tank, we just completely covered it in our masking solution, and then we sprayed it again in very cloudy pattern of white, and then we just peel it off the model, and we do that until we get the full result that we want on our model here. And we're going to do the same exact thing for our hull, or lower hull, or hull in just in general. This Tamiya white paint, for whatever reason, I've had a little bit of trouble thinning down this paint usually. So for me, it's very hard to do like a hairspray chipping pattern. So this masking solution, or this method, was an absolute blessing to figure out how to do, because the paint sometimes doesn't really agree with you, and you get really inconsistent results, and then you become unhappy with your results, and then you feel like you need to cover it up. It is the exact case with what happened in the tank that I spoke about previously that is not on the channel. Maybe it will be one day when I do like a past builds video, but this method, I couldn't have been happier with how this method came out. And again, we're just going section by section. Now, I did leave the fenders unpainted in terms of the winter whitewash. And I mean, under creative license, I just figured, you know, the crew may have left it unpainted, you know, for various reasons, just because it would be heavily used, and you know, that's a high traffic area, constantly pulling tools off of that area, stepping on that area. So for this model, really the main body of this tank is covered in this winter whitewash, and the fenders are not. But here are just some very oddly satisfying shots of me peeling off the masking solution. As you can tell, it's literally this easy to accomplish. There's no fancy chemistry that you really have to worry about. You just lay down the mask oil, you paint over it, and then you peel it off. And you're able to achieve just really great results, I feel like. You know, and you're able to do it in a relatively small time frame as well. Doing this step, all in all, probably took me in total about an hour and a half. Most of that was just waiting for the mask oil to dry a little bit, and then peeling the mask oil. Obviously, it doesn't all come off in one spot, so you do have to kind of work and pick at it a little bit. And then at the end of the day, all these chips come out, and it's quite rewarding. I didn't do it on camera, but off camera, you might just want to take a loose bristled brush, and you just want to kind of gently brush over these areas to get over any loose paint chips. You know, because if you guys can tell, there is paint that was on the mask oil that doesn't stick to the mask oil. It kind of flakes off, and it ends up on your model. So you may just want to go over it with a soft brush just to get a lot of that excess off, so the paint chips are exactly where you need them, instead of where they're not needed. So this is pretty much what we're going to be working with, guys. I don't think I could have asked for a better result when it came to this method, and I definitely wouldn't have achieved this good of a result, I think, using the hairspray method, or even just a general chipping method where I would take the gray paint and chip over it, because then I lose a lot of that distressing detail. But we will use the German gray to chip the road wheels, just because these chips are going to be a little bit more fine and not as extreme as the ones on the actual tank. And I'm going to leave you guys off with some gratuitous shots of the decal work. So obviously you can tell here the decals are in a little bit more visible areas than the rest of the tank, so I'm kind of happy that worked out the way it did as well. But I think the combination of the really chipped paint as well as the decal placement really turned this model up to the next level. I mean, this looks really just grimy and used, and that's what I kind of wanted to achieve with this model tank. At first I wasn't that excited to really go crazy on this tank. It was just kind of gonna be, you know, your run-of-the-mill German gray tank, but I got some ideas and I was glad that I was able to implement these ideas. Anyway guys, that's all the time we really have today. Appreciate all the support that I've been getting, and I hope that as the channel grows, so do my skills, and I just become a better modeler from feedback from you guys. So I really appreciate all the comments. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. But guys, thank you again for tuning in, and join me next week for when we finish up this tank, where we do some weathering, we're going to do some streaking, and we're just going to dirty up this tank a bit. Anyway guys, thank you again so much, and I'll see you guys next week.